All right, so it's pages 22 through 26. So we have R325.1634 rescinded. R325.1634A. Construction of wells, grouting rotary bored or augered wells. Rule 134A. 1. A well that is constructed by rotary, auger, or other drilling method where the permanent casing is placed in an oversized borehole shall be grouted with neat cement or bentonite grout, pursuant to the provisions of R325.1633A, the entire length of the casing. If a well screen is installed, the annular space shall be grouted from a point not more than 10 feet above the top of the well screen up to the ground surface. 2. The depth of grouting may be decreased by the health officer pursuant to the provisions of R325.313 2F. R325.1635. Construction of wells, grouting, driven casing wells. Rule 135. A well that is constructed by cable tool, hollow rod, jetting, or other drilling method where the permanent casing is driven shall be grouted pursuant to either of the following provisions. A. Where temporary casing or oversized borehole is not used, or where the temporary casing or oversized borehole is less than 25 feet in depth, dry granular bentonite shall be maintained around the permanent casing as it is being driven. B. By installing a temporary casing or oversized borehole not less than 3 inches larger than the nominal size of the permanent casing and extending not less than 25 feet below the established ground surface and grouting the annular space surrounding the permanent casing pursuant to the provisions of R325.1633A. R325.1636 rescinded. R325.1637 Construction of bedrock wells. Rule 137. 1. Where bedrock is encountered within 25 feet of the ground surface, an oversized borehole shall be drilled and the permanent casing shall be grouted with neat cement for a minimum depth of 25 feet. 2. In an area where a well can be developed only in fractured, jointed, or cavernous bedrock, the casing may terminate in the formation if there is not less than 25 feet of soil above the bedrock. If there is no record of the bedrock containing contaminated water and if geologic conditions offer no natural direct surface or near surface water inlets into the bedrock aquifer, where there is less overburden and deeper strata will not produce potable water, the well owner shall obtain written approval from the health officer for water treatment and well construction features that are necessary to provide a safe supply. 3. Hydraulic fracturing of bedrock is not permitted without the prior written approval of the health officer. R325.1637A. Verification of well grouting. Rule 137A. Where the department or health officer determines that any of the following conditions exist, the well drilling contractor may be required to excavate the wellhead for inspection. A. A visible open annular space surrounding a well casing. B. Failure to detect using a soil probe, excavation, geophysical logging, or other methods, grout 2 feet or more below the water service line connection to the casing. C. Placement of tracer dye around the casing at or near the ground surface with subsequent detection of the dye in the well water. D. Receipt of a well log which indicates that the well has not been grouted or which lacks information or contains incomplete information pertaining to grouting of the well. R325.1638 Construction of flowing artesian wells. Rule 138. 1. A well that is constructed in a location where flowing artesian conditions are encountered are expected to occur or shall be grouted to protect the artesian aquifer, prevent erosion of overlying geologic materials, and confine the flow to within the casing. 2. Flowing well discharge control shall be provided to conserve groundwater and to prevent loss of artesian head by preventing or reducing continuous discharges unless a deviation is issued pursuant to the provisions of R 325.1613. Flow control shall consist of valved pipe connection, watertight pipe connections, a receiving tank that is set at an altitude corresponding to that of the artesian head, a flowing well pitless adapter, a packer, or other method approved by the health officer. A flow discharge pipe, where installed, shall not be directly connected to a sewer or other source of contamination. R 325.1639. Construction of wells, well screens, lead packers, lead plugs, lead wool, and certain drilling fluids prohibited. Requirements for steel pipe used as screen riser pipes, blanks, or tailpipes, well pumping rate, temporary capping, well alignment, drilling water, requirements when using chlorine or other well rehabilitation chemicals. Rule 139.1. A water supply well that is installed in unconsolidated sand and gravel aquifers shall ordinarily be fitted with a screen that has openings which are properly sized so that the aquifer can be properly developed to produce sand-free water at the pumping rate of the permanent pump. A well screen, where installed on a casing that is less than 4 inches in side diameter, shall be telescoped and removable except for a driven well point that is installed pursuant to the provisions of R 325.1632. 2. Lead packers, lead plugs, or lead wool shall not be used as a well component. 3. Drilling fluids or additives that contain guar gum or other biodegradable organic material shall not be used during the drilling of a well. 4. Steel pipe that is used as well screen riser pipes, blanks, or tailpipes shall be in compliance with the minimum weight, dimension, and material standards for well casing that are listed in the provisions of R 325.1626 and R 325.1627. 5. A new, repaired, or reconditioned well shall be developed and pumped to waste at a pumping rate which equals or exceeds that of the permanent pump until the water is as clear as is reasonably possible considering the groundwater conditions in the area. A permanent pump shall not be used to develop the well without the owner's consent. Temporary capping of a well until the pumping equipment is installed shall be provided to prevent contaminants from entering the well. A well shall be sufficiently straight and vertical to allow normal installation and operation of the pump. Oh, this talk of water is making me thirsty. 8. Water that is used for drilling purposes other than water from the well itself shall be potable water that contains a free chlorine residual of not less than 10 parts per million at the time of use and shall be conveyed in containers that are clean and capable of being maintained in a clean condition. Surface water shall not be used for drilling purposes unless it is obtained from a municipal water supply system. 9. When chlorine is placed into a water supply system pursuant to the provisions of R 325.1661, or when well rehabilitation chemicals are used, the well drilling contractor or pump installer shall provide notification to the well owner or building occupants or shall make the system inoperable during the treatment period. R 325.1640. Certification of water well components. Rule 140.1. Water supply system components that are in contact with groundwater shall be free of materials that may adversely affect the aquifer or water pumped from the well and shall not support microbiological growth. After January 1st, 1994, a person shall not use the following water well components unless they are in compliance with or surpass ANSI NSF standard 1460 or 61, ASTM specification C150, or Section 10 of API Specification 10 as adapted by reference in R325.1610. A. Drilling fluids, grouts, and casing sealing materials. B. Additive to drilling fluids, grouts, and casing sealing materials. C. Pipe joint compounds, thread cutting oils, gasket sealants, or coatings on steel pipe. D. Solvent cements, primers, cleaners, or other compounds that are used with PVC pipe. E. Bladders, diaphragms, coatings, or lining materials that are in contact with water in a pressure or storage tank. F. Chemicals that are used for the development, maintenance, treatment, disinfection, or rehabilitation of a water well except for sodium hypochlorite or calcium hypochlorite. R325.1641 Above grade well casing connections. Rule 141. An above grade connection into the top or side of a well casing shall be not less than 12 inches above the ground surface and shall be constructed to exclude dirt or other foreign matter through one or more of the following methods as applicable. A. A threaded connection. B. A welded connection. C. A rubber expansion sealer. D. Bolted flanges with rubber gaskets. E. A weather-tight, vermin-proof well cap. And F. Extension of the casing at least 1 inch into the base of a power pump mounted on and sealed to a concrete pedestal. R325.1642 Below ground well casing connections. Rule 142. 1. A connection to a well casing that is made below the ground or less than 12 inches above the ground surface shall be protected by approved threaded or welded joints by an approved pitless adapter. A below ground connection shall not be submerged in water during installation. 2. Clamp on saddle style pitless adapters shall have both gaskets pressurized by water from the pump so that any water leakage will be from the pressure system outward. A pitless adapter shall provide the complete clearance within the internal diameter of the casing and shall vent the casing if required by the provisions of R325.1657. A person shall not install a pitless adapter that has not been approved in writing by the department. All right. R325.1643 Well casing signals and connections, other methods. Rule 143. Any other method of connection to a well casing shall be approved in writing by the director before installation. R325.1651 Construction of room housing, pumping equipment, or well casing. Location of pump or pumping equipment in single-family dwelling permitted access required for repair and maintenance of water supply system components. Rule 151. 1. A room that houses pumping equipment or the top of a well casing shall be constructed above the ground surface. However, the room may be located below grade if it is a basement offset as defined in R325.1601A1. 2. A pump or pumping equipment may be located within a crawl space beneath a single-family dwelling if the space does not accumulate water. 3. A pump room, basement offset, crawl space or well house shall provide access for maintenance or repair of the water supply system components. R325.1652 rescinded. R325.1653 pump construction, installation, design, and maintenance. Rule 153. 1. A pump shall be constructed so that there are no unprotected openings into the interior of the pump or well casing. 2. A power-driven pump shall be attached to the casing or approved section of discharge line by a watertight connection, or shall have a base plate that is in compliance with the provisions of R325.1641. 3. A pump shall be designed, installed, and maintained so that priming is not required for ordinary use. 4. Plastic pump drop pipes shall be in compliance with the material requirements for water service lines pursuant to the provisions of R325.1655-2. Flexible or coiled plastic pipe, when used as submersible pipe, submersible pump drop pipe, shall not have splices. Plastic pump drop pipe shall not be used with a Packard jet assembly. 5. Submersible pump motor lubricants and vertical turbine shaft lubricants shall be USDA or FDA approved food contact grade formulations. R325.1653A pump installation and hand pumps. Rule 153A. 1. A hand pump head, hand pump stand, or similar device shall be constructed in accordance with the provisions of R325.1653. Shall provide for venting pursuant to the provisions of R325.1657 and shall have a closed downward directed spout and a sealed pump rod packing assembly. 2. A hand pump shall be attached to a steel well casing or standpipe by sealed flange or other method approved by the department. The flange shall not be less than 6 inches above a concrete slab or the ground surface. An annular space between a standpipe and a well casing shall be sealed in accordance with the provisions of R325.1641 or with materials listed in Subrule 5 of R325.1603. 3. Where a well casing functions as a hand pump cylinder wall, the plunger shall be not less than 25 feet below the ground surface. A casing wall weep hole is not permitted. R325.1654 pump installation and water section lines. Rule 154.1. A water suction line shall be constructed of copper, galvanized steel, plastic pipe, or other material that is approved in writing by the director. 2. A water suction line that is outside the well casing shall be protected by utilizing one or more of the following methods: by fully exposing the line and by situating the line not less than 12 inches above the floor of an approved basement offset, or a pump room. B. By fully exposing the line above ground surface. C. By situating the line within an outer casing with the annular space filled with water from the system and maintained at system pressure. D. By surrounding the line by airspace in a straight, rigid conduit which does not have joints and which has positive drainage by gravity to the ground surface or to an improved basement offset, or pump room, with the conduit directly connected to the well casing by a threaded or welded watertight joint. The openings into the casing shall be welded watertight or shall be sealed in accordance with the provisions of R325.1641 to R325.1643, and the total length of the suction line that is protected by the gravity drained conduit shall not be more than 20 feet. R325.1655, pump installation and water service lines. Rule 155, 1. The buried portion of a water service line